Hello, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Hello, Johnny, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me on today.
Thanks for being here. I'm super excited. Today marks the very first edition of our new CS webinar series called Unlock Success, sorry, I'll get it right. And super excited to have Johnny take to the stage and share the mic with me today. Johnny, you're going to introduce yourself in just a second. I'm Seb. I'm one of the founders here at Melting Spot. We're a custom education platform. And we've been hosting webinars around the future of CS and specifically digital customer success. But this new series is really focused on practical experience, and we invite seasoned customer success professionals to share their own experience of what digital CS should look like. And today is Johnny's turn. Thanks, Johnny.
Thank you, Seb. Hi, everybody. My name is Jonny Tennyson. I'm head of customer success for EMEA and APAC here at Secure Code Warrior. Before my time at Secure Code Warrior, I was the global head of CS at a very exciting scale-up called Arius Risk. And before that, I had head of CS at another startup called ZoneFox, which was successfully acquired by Fortinet back in 2018, I believe now. So I've been head of CS at a few different places. I've had the opportunity to make a few mistakes and learn a few lessons along the way. So looking forward to hopefully sharing a few of those over the next 30 minutes.
That's good. We like mistakes. We try and learn from them. We do this at Melting Spot as well. The way this is going to run is we're going to be together for just half an hour. We're going to stick to timing as we always do. Please, if you listen to us on LinkedIn or even on Melting Spot on our Customer Success Nation group or on one of the Melting Spot academies, feel free to ask any question right inside the chat. We'll try and answer them on the fly as we go. Try and make this as alive as possible. So don't hesitate to interrupt myself or Johnny. This is really designed as a live conversation, and we want to let the audience contribute as much as possible. So let's get right into it. So the topic of these webinar series is really to unlock success and try and unlock the power of digital customer education, which is one of the areas of focus at Melting Spot, is really around how you help customers self-educate, how you help drive customer success with a successful customer education strategy. And by way of introduction, I wanted to share a number. We know from Gartner that 75% of SaaS users expect a self-service experience when it comes to using a software. So clearly an emerging trend in SaaS, and we're seeing the rise of digital CS activities, whether it be like webinars or forums or online events of all shapes and forms and sizes. But when we had our first chat with Johnny, you mentioned, Johnny, you were facing a dilemma with your digital sales and digital CS strategies, because you told me that we spend a decent amount of time and resource on this segment of digital sales and digital CS, and yet there's still high churn rates with this sort of low segment. And you were like, what should we do with this? So I think this is probably a good starting point. Share what the situation was when you started, and we'll take it from there.
Sure, absolutely. So this was a problem that we tried to solve through high touch methods first. So it was a case of every customer who comes on board, we give them, the top tier treatment, whether they were one of our smallest customers or one of our largest customers. Now, that was as a result of us being a small growing company, sorry. And anytime we got a new logo, it was very exciting, and we wanted to do everything to make that a success and hopefully keep them with us for a very, very long time. And we were at that size. This would have been during my ZoneFox days. We were at that size where we really wanted to ensure that everyone who came on board stayed with us. And we were at that size. Every single logo who joins gets the eyes of the board and everybody, and they want to know as soon as they've got any stories to share what their success looks like. So it felt like it was really high pressure to ensure that we did that. Now, that meant that we very quickly expended all of our resources, and we couldn't really stretch them any further than it was possible there. So we started to look at how we can introduce new workflows to try and kind of multiply our resources. And we had a reasonably sized knowledge base. We just thought, well, we'll just put that out there. Go, welcome. Here's the knowledge base. We'll have a
Yeah.
session, an onboarding session. We'll point you in the right way, and then we'll kind of let you loose. And the problem was we didn't have a good understanding of the kinds of cadences that we should have, if any at all, with those slightly smaller customers. So they got ignored quite quickly. And then we would check in with them maybe 6 months later, and it turns out they've done almost nothing. So to try and fix that, we thought, let's get some automation in there, which felt like a good idea. But really, we were automating tasks that weren't actually providing any value. So that was one of the key problems that we ran into, was that we threw automation at it, thinking if it's automated, it fixes it because it's doing stuff. As long as the customer's hearing something from us, then that solves the problem, right? And no, that wasn't the case. And even through several iterations of trying that kind of process, it just didn't really seem to fix it. So that was the initial problem. It's one that we're starting to get a little bit better at, and I think certainly here at Secure Code Warrior, we're starting to do a much better job of that. What we discovered was that whenever we try to deal with this just in post sales, it's too late. So really starting to actually understand and prepare the customer to be onboarded was a very key aspect for us as well. So that's something that we started to get a lot more clever at. And there's been a few things that we've tried and are still trying. So we're still learning a little bit, but we are definitely making good progress in the right direction.
Cool. Cool. I'm glad you mentioned onboarding, because I think it's a pretty central part of the like customer journey and the customer education piece. Certainly, getting customers properly onboarded. We know that you got pretty much 10 days to try and activate your customers. After that, you're like twice as likely to lose them within a year. So it's super important to get them to see the value, not necessarily materialize the value within 10 days. So that's a big ask, but see the value within 10 days. And obviously try and reduce your time to value as much as possible, because the sooner they actually materialize this value, the better, the more engaged they are, and the more likely they are to stick with your product. So onboarding is critical. We're starting to see the concept of everboarding as being a thing in customer success. So you've all heard of it, but very quickly, if this is a new concept to you, everboarding is the concept of onboarding that never stops. Because first off, some accounts are large, new users come and go within an account, and so you might have onboarded account A, but there's a variety of different users within that account, and they keep coming, and so every new user needs to be properly onboarded. And two, even if everyone's been properly onboarded within an account, your product changes, new features get released, and people need to be introduced. Your users need to be introduced to these new features. Hence the concept of everboarding. Is this a real thing?
Yeah, I believe that it is. And I would actually love if we could remove the word onboarding from our vocabulary altogether. I would be so happy about that. And I think so. Onboarding itself is an issue. Even if you're doing it well, it's still an issue because you're always still trying to tweak it, still trying to improve it, and all that good stuff. But it's a problem that multiplies very quickly if you've got different segments that you sell into, different customer sizes, different verticals that you sell into, because what value means for them is different than other ones, and all that stuff. So we try to almost take the same approach whenever we talk about having an onboarding process. And whilst we can tweak it for different segments, from my own experience, from what I've seen, and from other CS professionals, from other orgs that I've spoken to, there is still the temptation to say, this is our onboarding process, this is where it starts, and this is where it finishes. And that for me is just such a problem, because that having that defined point in time is a really risky thing, especially because it's so easy to get it wrong with a certain type of customer. And when you do get it wrong, it's really difficult to recover from. And that's when we start getting into an even scarier term, re-onboarding, which is just that's the worst. That's the
Okay,
worst.
I messed it up. Let's start again. Let's re-onboard
Yeah,
you.
yeah, I know,
Let's
I
make it
know, I
obvious.
know.
I messed it up.
Exactly. I did a bad job the first time. Let me try it again. It's so yeah. So I love the concept of everboarding. But the other thing that I would like to that I think is really important that we discuss when we're talking about something like everboarding is something that you just touched on there, which is that time to first value. Because I think that is something that warrants a very long discussion, certainly longer than the 30 minutes that we have today. I think this is definitely feels like a round
We can
table.
have a follow-up session.
Yeah. Because when we talk about time to first value, I am a big believer that sometimes we are talking about what first value means in the wrong way. So I've seen a lot of, and I've absolutely been guilty of this in the past, but I've seen a lot of people look at any first value and go, "There it is. It's value. It's right there. Great, we've done it. It's first value. We've got there." But the problem is there's a difference between seeing any kind of value and celebrating that and seeing the right kind of value and seeing that. So for me, it's a case of time to first value of any kind. Fair enough. We definitely want to see some kind of value so we can start to demonstrate that we've got some form of value very, very early on. But if there's a big gap between that first value that we're seeing and the kind of value that would drive a contract renewal decision, then that's a big concern. For me, we've still got a lot of work to make up there. So what I'm more interested in seeing is the time to the first kind of value that would actually move the needle on a key business driver.
Mhm.
So, and I think one of the reasons that as a function we miss that a lot is because we don't focus on those key business drivers a lot. We
Mhm.
often get them from sales and we go, cool, that's it. We don't need to validate it. We already know what it is. They've told us, let's run with it. And let's just find some metrics that will align to that. When actually we miss, and this is where the concept of everboarding, I think, really accelerates value to the customer,
Mhm.
is that as part of an everboarding process, we should be constantly validating that that is the key business driver that our decision
Yeah.
maker wants, and that all our metrics are aligned to that, and that's the value that we're aiming for.
But
So
then
I think, yeah. Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
but then the tricky part is these KPIs are not necessarily the same for all your customers. They might be actually very specific to your customer's own business.
Exactly. And that's why it's much easier to do this for the very, very large enterprise organizations. And it's probably one of the biggest problems for me that we need to solve on the digital side of things.
Mm.
And if we're good at understanding for our higher touch customers what those different key business drivers are, then we can start to collate it together. Now, the problem then that we still need to solve is if we know what all of those high touch customers want, we can reasonably assume quite a lot of our digital or low touch
Low touch
customers will want
customers.
those same things.
Mhm.
How do we communicate that to them? Because a lot of the time, they don't know what that key business driver is. If they're buying our product because they've got some discretionary budget or they've got a little bit of budget left over, and that's why they're only kind of tiptoeing into it, we might not have the opportunity to have that discussion with them.
Mm.
And
So you have to guess that what their key business drivers are, right?
yeah, absolutely. And if we don't get good at that, we're going to have a large pool of digital customers who may be big logos, who may be, if we can help them to
Externally, yeah.
understand, yeah, and internally communicate those key business drivers and how we're helping move the needle on those, then we're missing the opportunity to convert those into potentially our future enterprise accounts. So
Mm.
it's a problem we really have to solve at some point pretty soon.
Cool. Well, in fact, we will have a dedicated session on KPIs, and I think the title we came up with is CS metrics suck. It's time to change them. With
I like that.
Sue. So we'll have this session in May. So or no, it's the 16th of April. Sorry. So we'll touch on it later. But
Nice.
back to the topic of everboarding and. There's one when we prepared for this talk. I really liked an image that you used around
Mm,
what digital CS activities look like, and you said, okay, the first of all digital CS activities to put together a shiny knowledge base with all the information in here that your customers might need to get started, and then it's got to be exhaustive. Never mind if no one reads it. It's got to be there. Okay, fair enough. And then you package it up in a really nice little shiny box, and then you move this box away. And you said it's to me it's like having a super exhaustive library downtown. You know, every book on earth is there. You can find it if you're looking for it. But you hardly never drive there because it's a 20-minute drive, and you're better off having a smaller selection of content. Or if we take this in the world of digital, like experiences can be in a variety of ways, and we'll touch on it now. But a selection of that content. Right at home, right next to where you live, and tap into this rather than having this long, exhaustive library, but downtown. I really like the image. So, are you still part of the small selection at home rather than the downtown library?
Yeah, so to kind of follow on that analogy, for me, it's a case of we should always have the library there. Like we should always be filling it and putting more stuff in there. But whenever a new customer comes on board who's going to be a digital customer for us, our gift to them should be the book that they're looking for. You know, it should be, and welcome. We got all this stuff here. If you know you can work your way through that. But in the meantime, I recommend you start with this. And
Brilliant.
that should be how we get to that value as quick as
Okay.
possible, you know. And then if there are technical things that they need to go and explore, cool. The library's right there. It's cool,
Okay.
you know. Because one thing that and this was definitely one of the mistakes that I made was that I focused so much on getting the knowledge base. It's like put everything in there, grow it, make it the biggest knowledge base any vendor's ever seen, and I still wouldn't do without that. I love having a big knowledge base because it's so helpful for those questions that someone has asked. And
Mm.
actually, I'll not go off on a tangent in this one, but a CEO that I used to work for, he was a big proponent of saying every support ticket that comes in, once you solve that support ticket, create an article for it. Just create an
Mm.
article, you know,
Yeah.
put it in the knowledge base. And that was great. But for digital customers, absolutely. The real secret sauce is getting that book together of the most important stuff in there, and having that as the look here first.
Cool. Well, then I love that. Let's try and see what that book looks like. What kind of digital CS activities have you rolled out, either at Aries Risk or as Secure Code Warrior? And can you tell us what worked, what didn't work that well?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the ones that I was very excited to roll out because I thought it was going to be a massive success and it was super clever and all that good stuff was I took a look at the onboarding process and thought we'll divide this up into several different stages. And it would be all controlled through Salesforce. So we could start this with a prospect and say this is in the pre-sale stage. This is in once they've signed the contract, we move them into like a pre-onboarding stage and stage one, stage two, and I created all these fancy stages thinking it was really clever. And for each of those stages that was triggered in Salesforce, the customer would get something from that. There would be resources, there would be details of even things like just confirmation of their details of their contract and some initial first steps for them to take and all that good stuff. It sounded like a great idea. Everyone thought it was a great idea, so I thought, great, well, we were all in agreement. It's a great idea. It wasn't. It wasn't. It gave the customer a load of emails. It was useful for us internally because it meant that we were moving that customer along their path, but it was still a high touch path was the problem. It wasn't a truly, we weren't delivering nearly enough value for it to be fully hands off. So that was definitely one of the big mistakes there.
Yeah, because they like digital customer education largely means letting your digital customers educate on their own terms, more so than your high touch customers, where you know this is designed to be that way. You've proved it in the past, um, and it's a well-oiled system. But digital is all about letting them self-educate on their own terms, and which makes it super hard to guess what these terms will be. Okay, so and in terms of formats, what kind of formats have you tested? Like forums, webinars, calls, or
Yes.
whatever?
I've tried a wide variety. I've also tried building a community and going down the forum route. that is a good idea, but it is very size dependent. I would say you gotta have the resource in place for it, and you gotta have at least enough customers for them to be able to contribute and all that good stuff. So, so if there's anyone watching who's in kind of the more smaller startup territory, I wouldn't waste your resources on that side of things. But it can be, once it develops. Once it develops momentum, can be very, very useful. So uh, in terms of the automation side of things, tends to be good if you can get it right, but it's easy to get it wrong. For now, the most successful route that we've had has been integrating a third-party platform into ours and having a workflow through there, so it feels like a guided process. And I think that that magic of it feeling like a guided process is where it starts to come alive for people. And it's, and it means that we are hands off. Got people kind of monitoring the process, but it's mostly hands off. But from a end user aspect, they feel like they're being guided. And I think
Mm.
that guided to the right materials, guided to value, guided to all that good stuff. And yeah, getting that magic is quite important, in my own experience.
Cool. And in terms of, I always wonder, like what one of the drivers for educating digital customers is to do one too many types of engagement, communication, trainings. Is this something you've tested either at Aries Risk or Secure Code Warrior, like group onboarding sessions or group masterclasses, webinars, and similar to what we're doing here? Is this did it work?
Yes, I quite like using office hours. I think
Yeah.
that's something that works quite well. I think as long as you've got a good rota in place for the right people to be able to man those,
Hmm.
that it is something that can work. And I found that educational webinars can be hit and miss, but overall, I much prefer to do them than to not do them. And they're also good not just for the early customers or the digital customers, but it's also quite good for some of the high touch ones who've been there for a while. Because sometimes
Hmm.
we get additional contacts come in from the ones who've been maybe with us for 3 or 4 years, and it just enhances our understanding of who's doing what within those accounts. But for sure, one to many webinars, always a good thing, as long as you can man them correctly. I think, yeah.
Cool. And who should you include in getting these content ready? Like, is this mostly a CS only territory, or should product marketing or product altogether take part and contribute to the show?
Yeah, that's. I think it's probably one that people. I know people are going to disagree with me on this one, but I'm going to say it anyway. So in my experience previously, um, for a CS team that I built in the past, I also included CS engineers. It's quite a technical product, and
Hmm.
so they came on board as very much the technical SMEs. But they were also fantastic at just speaking to people and communicating concepts. So within the actual job description itself, we wrote that there would be 20% of time dedicated to writing SME stuff. To not just talk about the product, but just the industry and where that product sits. So as a result, those people naturally became the right people for creating that content that would then be delivered on a one-to-many basis, and that was a very successful route for us, and I was pleased with how well that went.
Cool. Okay. And yeah, I have. We started, so when we started rolling out digital, like I'm sharing some of our experience here at Melting Spot as well. Um, Whilst I have the mic. And we started rolling out new feature presentations. And initially, the CS team ran these webinars, and we found that it made a lot more sense to have the product, like product marketing, but even the product. One of the POs actually uh, started demoing the new features, the product, and one, they're a lot more engaged, and two, they get to speak to customers like one-on-one, face-to-face on those live presentation. And there's a lot of value in this because it helps inform their discovery and sort of help them think through features in a different way. So we I think it's definitely worthwhile involving product implementation teams, more tech teams as well in these conversations. Cool. You promised that you'd be sharing experiences and some of the errors and mistakes you made on the way. You shared one already. Is there another major fail? Yeah, no. Just
There's
full disclaimer: we're live and recorded.
there's quite a few, so I'll go with my favorite one, and people can message me on LinkedIn for some of the other ones afterwards. So a while back, we were I was working in what was a 100% direct selling startup, and we were moving into the channel side of things. And my overconfident at the time self, I was in channel sales before I moved into customer success. So I thought, who better suited to help the channel in that kind of way in the post sales side of things. And I put together all these plans for working with MSPs and MSSPs and helping to kind of provide our platform as a service and all that stuff. And it seemed on paper like a great idea. In practice, I wasted the time of about 5 different MSPs who just we didn't enable them properly. We weren't able to support them like they needed, and all sorts of things. It was a very egg on face moment because I bigged it up as being something that was going to be a huge success. So I'm a little bit more hesitant these days around that particular channel aspect. But yeah, who knows? Who knows? I sometimes make mistakes twice, so if the opportunity comes up again, I might have a second go just to try and rectify it. But we'll see.
Okay, cool. Great. I think we're getting to the end of this talk. I just want to. I'll let you think of anything you might want to add, Johnny. During that time, I'm going to promote very quickly the future webinars that we'll be hosting as part of this series. Simona from Penny Lane will be joining us next month. So feel free to, once this talk is over, leave the live room and then register to the next show. And we will also have Sue from Success Chain, as I mentioned earlier, talking about specifically about CS KPIs and why they suck and why we need to change our perspective on metrics and try and stick more to business metrics rather than trying to have like one size fit all KPIs for all our customers. So this is going to be 2 super interesting talks. Anything you wanted to add, Johnny, before we part?
No, I
Don't
think
talk rugby, please. Don't talk rugby. You're not allowed.
Yeah, no. Well, in that case, no, nothing else to add from my side for today.
Oh, come on. Stop bragging. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Johnny, for being here. Hope you enjoyed this talk. If you want to reach out to Johnny with any specific questions, you can do this on LinkedIn directly or via our Melting Spot CS Nation group. There's a member section where you can send direct messages. We'll be notified right into Johnny's mailbox. So thanks again. Thanks, Johnny.
Perfect.
Really
Thank
appreciate it. And speak to you soon. See you on our next webinar.
Look forward to it.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you.